I would like to have a confirmation from the IMI headquarters, because this is a very, I'm pleased that you bring it up, because I was confused myself. No, please.
Your understanding of the rules is correct. So the reason why we organise open info days, the reason why we have webinars, is to allow applicants the opportunity to question FPA, and particularly the members that have written the topic, so that you can ask your scientific questions and understand exactly what FPA are looking in the consortium. Moving forward, what you should do if you have any questions is that after today you should contact me or the executive office. And what we will do is we will act as the go-between. So you will still get the information you need from FPA, but what will happen is that I will take your question and I will give you the answer. And we do that to avoid conflicts of interest.
Next question, please.
Stefan Kubicek from the CEM in Vienna. So you mentioned that one organization is not a consortium, which is obviously true, but given your previous experiences and the specific focus of that call, could you give a recommendation or estimate what size of consortia would most likely be successful? How many partners there should be?
I can't give you an exact number. All I can do is stress the fact that there are two aspects of your applicant consortium. One, it should be able to address all of the objectives. So if you need 2 applicants to address all of the objectives, that's great. If you need 10, that's great. If you need 400, well, that's good as well, but you're not going to get an awful lot of money at the end of it. And the other thing that is more of a hindrance is that we sometimes see applicant consortia with very good people, and they may have very good skills, they're world-leading experts, but they all have experience or skills focused in maybe 1 or 2 areas, when you maybe need to cover 5 or 6. And although you've got quite a nice consortium and it's world-leading, that actually puts that applicant consortium at a disadvantage, because the question is, can your applicant consortium, does it have the experience to address all of the objectives? So you have flexibility. It could be 2, it could be 4, it could be 10, but you need to address all of the objectives.
What was the average in previous calls?
It varies widely between 6 to 20, but for some of and in some of the education and training, they're very, very big. They're like 40, but you're usually looking at between 10 to 15, I would say, is about average.
Okay, one question there, and then the last question there.
Coming back to the issue of contacting FPA companies who want to be part of a consortium, I understood that these contacts are more or less prohibited. But in that respect, I can imagine that in particular in this call, pharma companies will have specific interests in IP and in the protection and the way how hits would be protected. Therefore, my question is, does it make sense to establish rules within a consortium on IP and how IP will be handled, in particular the licensing issue, without the industrial partners?
You're correct in all points. The only the thing is that those discussions do involve all partners, and they start after the selection of public expression of interest. So those discussions start whenever the successful applicant is working with the FPA consortium. So they already know each other, they're working together as a single consortium, and then they work through the FPP and into the grant agreement. So they do work together.
And that means that you don't expect very detailed rules on IP already in the...
No.
So please repeat the question.
So we do not expect detailed rules coming from the applicants for how the IPR is going to be handled. We have a set of rules and guidance that you should consider and be aware of and take account of whenever you are putting your application together, because that will be the framework upon which you will base the IPR discussions and your rules with the FPA partners if successful.
Yes, please, identify yourself and last question.
Trevor Howe Janssen. I'd like to ask a question about overlapping funds. So in the fifth call, many of the calls overlap with many calls from member states' government research organisations like the MRC and the EPSRC. So is there a mechanism foreseen in the fifth call that things like funding from the MRC can be combined with the IMI?
In terms of direct funding of this project, no, but because you become a member of an IMI consortium, it doesn't stop you from applying for funding elsewhere, and we would actually encourage as many participants to be involved in other schemes to try and one of the key goals is to build up the ecosystem. So if there is complementarity and synergy with other schemes and with other projects, we encourage that greatly. What we have to avoid is duplication.
Right,
and
exactly.
Duplication of
it's
effort.
Huge overlap, actually.
Exactly. So.
Okay. Then it's time for refueling and networking. Very important part of today. Lots of people here who are interested in the lead factory business. This is the time to connect. I would like to thank Hugh, Claire, Terry for your contributions. And if there are any more questions to this trio, then they will be around, and don't hesitate to approach them. They don't bite. We will be back at 1:30, and then we'll talk about, the European lead factory.